FNCS Opens is now done. We have Clix setting a world record, absolutely dominating the tournament. Does this mean someone is finally going to stop Peterbot? We also had some big drama over on EU, Rezon not making it to group stages, and it's because he got griefed by his old teammates. I also want to break down which group is the hardest, which is the easiest, who's dropping on who, because unfortunately Mr. Savage got very unlucky and the team that he's been contesting for the last few weeks is in his group. So I'm going to break down the groups and talk about who I think is going to make it to grand finals. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Before we get into talking about who's in what group and which group I think is the hardest, we've got Savage being contested in finals. Let's talk about the actual performance in FNCS Opens. It's the play-ins. It's 2-day format, 10 games each day, and we had Clix, Batman, Booga, and Iomzo put on an absolute clinic, getting first place on 1,450 points. Basically 500 points clear of second. Clix, BB, and Iomzo absolutely dominated this tournament. Again, Batman, Booga, Iomzo, and Mason were absolutely running up all of the opens throughout this season. They've also done quite well in finals. They clearly know how to fight people. You then replace Mason with Clix, and apparently that doesn't make them any worse. If anything, it makes them even better. I would have to say Iomzo is probably the best fighting IGL in NA right now. When people watch this trio, they can't even figure out who the IGL is because they're all so good at fighting, but they're also all just communicating everything. It is basically full chaos. Sometimes I don't know how this trio functions as well as they do, but they absolutely ran through these lobbies. They had 365 eliminations in 14 games. That means they got an average elims of 26 per game. They averaged a 3.21 placement on top of that, which if you put that all up, that's over 100 points averaged per game. Absolutely disgusting. And if that doesn't somehow like sink in how good this was, EU's first place performance was iDrop, Sky, and Scroll on 950. So not only did they have almost 500 points on top of second on NA, they had 500 points top of the entire EU leaderboard. Now, this obviously raises some questions. How is this possible? Are Clix, Batman, Booga, and Iomzo just absolute gods? The format is interesting right now because it's anyone in Div 1 down to top 99. There is only around 250 teams playing on Div 1 in each region because there's more Div 1 players, but players got Div 1 from other regions. You've got NA West and EU players who've gotten Div 1 on NA Central, but they're not going to play FNCS on NA Central. So only about 250 or less teams on most of the regions. Going down to 99 means that basically the best of the best players, like we've been seeing in the Division 1 qualifiers, just absolutely decimate everyone else. Now, that doesn't take away from how good Clix, Batman, Booga, and Iomzo play. This is clearly an absolutely insane opens team, but there are a lot of pros and a lot of teams out there saying that once they qualified, they stopped trying, which you can take that as it is. You can trust them and believe them and say that it's opens, they'd already qualified, there's no reason to keep trying, they're going to take it easy. Or you can just think it's excuses. I'll let you be the judge, but a lot of people are questioning why Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot weren't up here on the leaderboard and why they weren't top 10. Now, I know you're probably going to say, oh, but Aussie, there's seeding. You wanted to place really highly so you get better seeding. Not really. If you look at the actual official rules, the way the seeding works is it goes Group 1, first place, Group 2, second place, Group 3, third place, and then it goes backwards. 4, 5, 6. It doesn't actually really change that much. Do you really think the team in 4th place is considerably worse than the team in 6th place or considerably better? It doesn't really change that much because it's a battle royale, it's an opens format. We know that really good teams can have an off day or they can just stop trying because they've already qualified. So it doesn't really matter whether you win or come 99th in this format as far as seeding goes, but it is confidence coming into the finals now. This has given the Clix fans and the Peterbot haters especially a lot of hope that maybe Clix, Batman, Booga, and Iomzo can put a stop to Peterbot's run. I know I said this last week after they did really well in the opens and in the finals, fizzled out a little bit. They didn't have the same performance, but this is their second week or third week now, I think, playing together as a trio. They are looking extremely good, and I'm excited to see what it means for finals. We had Vidal, Cooper, and Sphinx, the other trio that seems to be coming second place in everything so far this season. They are always the runner-ups. I really, really hope they get their tournament win very, very soon. Then we had Rapid, Kanata, and Bolts, and if you've seen this team play, I'm kind of describing them as the co-workers trio. They really are just showing up and putting in a shift. It really does feel like, you know, just showing up to work. They don't seem to be enjoying it that much. They don't seem to be that passionate about it, which makes sense if you've been following this team's story throughout the season. You can understand maybe a little bit more now why Poyo didn't want to play with Bolts after he said he was going to step back from Fortnite, because he is really stepped back. Some of the games today during the qualifiers, he actually queued into the game to get Rapid and Kanata in the game, and then went AFK because he didn't want to play the tournament. So insane. They still came third place overall. Just goes to show how good these players are while still not even taking it that seriously. We have Noxy, Virgo, and Curly in 4th, Victor V's team in 5th, Shadow in 6th. Then we have Donnie, Mason, and Chance. I've been gassing up Donnie super heavily, saying him going from 60 ping down to 0 is going to be a demon. He got himself a new trio the day of FNCS, splitting up with Joji, and picked up Mason, who we've talked about coming back from vacation, and Chance, which means yes, Chance is not playing FNCS with Reed and Vert. Reed and Vert ended up picking up Bryce. So Donnie splitting up with Joji the day of FNCS is pretty brutal, but clearly proving that he has a lot of potential alongside Mason and Chance. Then we had Golden's trio, Taki's trio, and Noah W placed around at the top 10. Yes, Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot very uncharacteristically in 11th place. Like I said, they've been pretty vocal about the fact that once they qualified, they just didn't really care. Doesn't sound a lot like Peterbot, but it definitely does sound a little bit like Cold, who was maybe like, yo guys, like, come on, let's chill. We've already made finals. Let's just lock in for group stages. Now, I want to talk about EU really quickly as well before we talk about the groups. We did have iDrop, Sky, and Scroll closing out in first on 950 points. These Danish players absolutely dominating alongside iDrop, the Norwegian. Sky and Scroll, the youngest duo at Globals last year, really impressed a lot of people, and they absolutely popped off. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, right down the very bottom, literally in 99th place, we have another Danish trio, Trippern, Thomas, and Frodoxy. Now, I mentioned this for a few reasons. Firstly, because I know a lot of people disrespected Sky and Scroll when Thomas went to play with them at the start of the season, saying Thomas is way too good for them. They're way below his level. Thomas should never play with them. And now Sky and Scroll are backing up the fact that they are dominating. Now, Trippern, Thomas, and Frodoxy have been playing very well this season, though. Remember, they got a 3rd place a couple weeks ago in finals at Brutal Boxcars with no train at their drop spot. So they are a phenomenal trio. I don't know what happened. They only just qualified by 1 place, which I think Thomas HD has earned a little bit of luck. If you haven't seen Thomas HD's history of placements to not have a win, it is insane. He's come twice in FNCS by 1 point. He's come top 4, I think, in 12 out of 21 FNCS he's played. Just insane. So very happy to see they at least got across the line, because like I was saying earlier, 1st or 99th, it doesn't really matter too much as long as you make it through the groups. We were missing some big teams on EU though as well. Rezon not qualifying, and there was a lot of drama around this one. If you guys don't know, the TLDR of this one is we had Yanis, Noah Riley, and Rezon. Yanis and Noah decided to drop Rezon. He then picked up Cheat and Kiddo and said he's going to keep dropping on Yanis for the rest of the season because he's sad about being dropped. And people got confused about that. Some people upset, some people understood, but they seemed to settle their differences. They seemed pretty, buddy in calls and hanging out. And then apparently in the last game Rezon needed to qualify, Yanis deliberately figured out which game Rezon was loading into the same game, dropped on him, took him down, and made him not qualify out of groups. Rezon went on to tweet so many times, pretty much just saying that no one in this industry are his friends. He has no friends. Yanis is terrible. He's going to spend the whole season griefing, the whole year griefing Yanis. There was a bunch of drama in the German scene. It was hard for me to follow with, Twitter Translate and trying to watch the streams, not speaking any German, but it's going down on the German scene right now. Rezon's going to have to qualify through Last Chance Major now, which I'll talk about in a second. To round out the rest of the EU leaderboard, we had Swizzy's team in 2nd. They were in 1st place all of day 1. Didn't have as good of a day 2, but still phenomenal performance. Then we had Weed's team in 3rd, very underrated team. Then we had Vico, Veno, Flixie, used to seeing them up there in 4th place. Then we had Kurama's team in 5th, Pixovsky, Vanya, Noms, Mongraal, Savage, and Panzer doing extremely well. And for those of you guys who are Mongraal fans, they are uncontested in their group, but it's not going to be a shattered span. I'll talk about that in a second. And then we had Ping's team in 10th overall. So a bit of an upset on EU with a few big teams not qualifying, only just qualifying. There weren't really many upsets on NA, but if a team didn't make it to groups, they still have a chance of qualifying to FNCS Grand Finals. I made a whole video breaking down the groups, but they're going to have to wait for Last Chance Qualifier now, where they're going to play against every other team in the region who didn't qualify, Div 2, Div 3, and Div 1. They've got to try to get top 33 teams in an opens game, and then they get to play in the finals where they have to get 1 of 3 wins to make grand. So for teams like Rezon, it's looking a little bit rough. Now let's look at the groups. Who got in what group, and who do I think is going to qualify, and who got the hardest lobby? So like I said, this may as well have been basically randomly put together with who got into what group. Yes, there was seeding, but like I already explained, it was pretty much randomized essentially. So we have 2 groups being, in my opinion, considerably harder. So on NA, we have Group 2. This already has Vidil's team, Victor V's team. We have Peterbot's team, Muzz's team, Booga's team, among a whole bunch of other ones. Then I think on Group 3, on EU's hardest lobby as well. This is Mongraal, Savage, and Panzer's trio. They also have to go up against Veno's team. They're going up against Wheat's team. They're going up against Skyjump, going up against Focus, Combat. There's a lot of really, really good players in there. Now, you'll probably notice already, talking about Group 3, we have two teams that I just knew they were going to end up in the same group. We have Mongraal, Mr. Savage, Panzer, and then we have Mixon, Combeck, and Blaha. Now, both these teams are the two teams that go Shattered Span. This is the bridge drop. Savage has been practicing this drop spot, and a lot of people have been begging him in his community, go back to the bird. I didn't talk about it during the opens, but Honey's team actually did not make it to groups, which means Bird is back to being uncontested. Now, you're thinking, Aussie, but Bird's terrible now. They removed the medal. That's why they left. It's an awful drop. Well, in tonight's update, hopefully by the time you're watching this video, the update will have gone live, and Epic said they are going to fix the brick. So the brick is now going to go back to metal, making Bird a phenomenal drop again. So that is enough to tell Mr. Savage, Mongraal, and Panzer, let's go back to the Bird. There's no point fighting Mixon's team at Shattered Span. Let's qualify to grand finals, and then I guess we'll see. Maybe if Mixon's team doesn't qualify to grands, they'll go back to the bridge. Maybe if someone else contests them, I don't know. But for now, Mongraal, Savage, and Panzer are back at the Bird. They're in the hardest group, but if you guys don't know the format, all you have to do is win one of the 5 games in your group. And if you don't get one of the 5 wins, you have to get top 5 on the leaderboard that doesn't get a win. So top 10 basically in each group is going to go through, including the 5 winners. So it's not going to be hopefully too hard for them to do. They are really good for a win if they can get off spawn and get a good mid game going. But top 5, we'll see how they go. They do have some other really good teams in their lobby. But what they can also do is switch drops. Let's say Vico's team wins game 1. That means Flooded Frogs is now up for grabs. You can drop Flooded Frogs and take that for yourself. It's going to be really fun to see how these groups play out. Now, they're last up, so we're not going to see them play for like another 10 days or so. Group 1 is only a few days away, but there's about a week break before Group 2 and 3. So we're interested to see what happens with that one. On NA, I mentioned Group 2, I think, is by far the most stacked, and Group 1 has none other than Clix, Batman, Booga, and Iomzo. If anything, I would say Group 1 on NA is probably the easiest group out of any of the 3 groups on the 3 regions. It really is probably the least stacked group. Like I said, the seeding is essentially randomized, but in this case, it really helped Clix's team. There are some other big teams they're gonna have to contest with. Shadow Curve, Tyler in there, Donnie Mason, Chance, who I was just gassing up. I think Visuals, Braid, Mini Shed. You've got the OGs, Blake and Cease. There are some good teams in there, but getting a top 10 should be very doable for Clix, especially with how well they're currently playing. We don't get to see Clix versus Peterbot in a set lobbies again until basically grand finals now. We have the eval cups, but it's a little bit different when you're playing only for the win, because like I've been talking about, for Clix's team to overtake Peterbot, to take that top spot, they're gonna have to get their consistent elims in the finals, and the eval cups just don't really do that. So we'll see how long it takes for Clix's team to win in groups. Right now, based on the eval cups, Clix's team are the best team I think in the world right now at getting wins in stacked lobbies. They play it perfectly. I would be surprised if it gets to game 3 and Clix isn't already out of groups. Now, I'm not gonna make a full video breaking down exactly what's going on in each group. Unless you guys really want it, you can let me know in the comments down below. We have the drop maps. I can go through and talk about like a top 10 prediction maybe in each group, but I did really want to see the drop maps kind of play out a bit more, because I know they're going to change overnight. Because a lot of these teams, you know, if you've been dropping Flooded Frogs, but now you're in Peterbot's lobby, you're not going to keep going Flooded Frogs. You're going to drop somewhere else. So I want to see where people shake up and where they drop. But if you guys want a video like that, I can probably put out tomorrow and do a whole video just on groups, because as much as I wasn't the biggest fan of this opens format, I know a lot of people, you know, if you tune into my stream, you got to hear my opinions on it. It wasn't the most stacked, and I get that. Sometimes it's hard to make opens lobbies stacked. I would love to see Fortnite in the future actually implement the cash cups into the format. I would love it if the last 3 weeks of the cash cups were actually leading up to FNCS. Let's say you got series points based on how well you place in those cash cup finals or opens, and that's how you got into groups. They have a prize pool. It makes them super stacked. Seeing, you know, Clix versus Peterbot go at it would be a lot more exciting. There wouldn't be this weird dialogue of, you know, oh, Clix's team won by 500 points, but they'd already called as opens. No one else was trying, because it feels like it takes away from a really good achievement from Clix's team. So it is sad the opens format wasn't that great, but this groups format, this last chance major and the grand finals are going to be extremely exciting. I promise you.